can't,
Yeah, let me put the video on.
there we go.
So you can see me now too, right?
Yeah.
Nice. How's it going?
Yeah, it's really good. Finally, we're actually doing this. I'm excited, man.
Yeah, got a nice spot to talk in. And all right. So how's your day been going?
Yeah, it's pretty good so far. I mean, it's like it's almost 11 o'clock. So I mean, I slept in at like I don't usually sleep in, but I slept in this morning. So that's why I texted you and I messaged you when I woke up. So I just wanted time to like wake up, do yoga, meditation, and now I'm here. So yeah, how's it been? How's your experience so far? Like living in Ecuador and living in like a totally different environment. It must be like amazing.
Yeah, definitely the most life-changing experience I've ever had. Um, like I prepared months before coming here by eating, the best I could and purifying myself to the best of my ability, and it paid off really well because when I got here, I went into like a full 100% raw diet, which I'd never done before, and like combining that with being in this clean environment and being with like a community of people that's basically all on the same mission as me, all on the same wavelength, and like removing myself from toxic energies. I had some very powerful detox symptoms, so it's been the most liberating and best feelings that I've ever had in my life, but also a lot of like the most painful or hard times of my life as well because like detoxing and stuff, it's not easy, but it's been uh, well worth it 100%. And I'm sure you've gone through the same things, so you know what it's like. And for certain periods of time here, I would have like more energy than I've ever had in my life. And then certain times I would like crash and I wouldn't be able to do anything but just like lie down and stuff. And it's not even just me that's had to go through that. It seems like almost everybody here has gone through some sort of transformation like that. And I'm really grateful that I've had the support from everybody here because I would have thought without their support that what I was going through would be something that's bad. But then I realized that it's really just a part of the process. And we go through those periods, just like when you're coming off of any addictions that you might have had or any cravings, like, to like a less healthy lifestyle. And then when you finally make that transition, you're you're gonna inevitably go through some sort of like withdrawal, quote unquote, or some sort of like going downwards before you go back up. You know what I mean? And so it's been quite a journey of that this past month and a half that I've been here.
That's good. Yeah,
So,
that's good.
yeah.
Yeah, I totally get it though. Like whenever you're eating like 100% for, or like even if you're just transitioning, or if you do like fasting or whatever, like there's so many like emotional ups and downs. It's like 1 minute things are like really great and you have like so much energy, and you've like experienced like this new state that you've never experienced, and then like maybe like a few hours later or the next day or whatever, it's like literally like I feel like you can't do anything. I know what I mean. And it's just like sometimes I guess that's the benefit of like living in a community like where you're living now. But like I know for myself, like living in like, and probably like before when you were living like in the States, like when you're living in like a, I don't know, like like our like Western world and our like domesticated environment, like it's sometimes um easy to like question like am I like sort of crazy that I'm going to these extremes, and am I like damaging my health or something, because you look at people around and they're just like,
Hmm.
doing things that they've always done them, and it's like to them they don't like they don't understand what you're doing, and it's just like, why would you do what you're doing? It doesn't make any like logical sense, but it makes so much sense like intuitively,
Yeah,
and it's just like I don't know,
yeah,
yeah,
100%. I mean, like, I definitely went through the same things when I was living in the States. Like, I didn't have really much of any support from friends or family because I was the only one that I knew that was going on this journey. And so I had to rely on uh, nobody but myself, basically, and just go with what I would just intuitively feel was right for me and just experimenting and trying new things. And then finally see that. Uh, what works and what doesn't, and it's like you save yourself a lot of time and a lot of like hardship or unnecessary suffering when you've got like a support system that's gonna kind of show you the way, or at least just give you some sort of um, sense of direction of like this is what's the right thing to do, and like showing you, and you see from them and what how far they've gotten that like there's a light at the end of the tunnel basically, or something like that, where you don't have to walk or navigate through this reality without some sort of light or a torch to guide you, because sometimes you feel like you're just walking through the darkness and there's like nowhere, no sense of direction of where you're going, you know? And it takes a lot of internalization, and not just like seeing or reading things on the internet, but it takes real work within to actually find out what's best for you. You can't just read in some article what the healthiest way to live is. You have to actually go through yourself and see what's best, what works best for you. And yeah, nobody can do that but you.
yeah, definitely. Like everybody's got their own internal like system that they need to sort of sort out and find what is going to work for them because it's different for everybody and like I do believe that raw food is like the best and um like yeah, but I don't at the same time I don't believe that maybe it's not for everybody. Maybe like I don't know, people don't need to do it. Like I'm not sure. Like going through this journey, like I've learned a lot. I don't see it the way that when I first got into raw food and like seeing it. I see it totally different now because I realize that there are different dangers and there are like so many benefits and there are definitely ways that can be misperceived and it's really hard to like when you're going like as like when you have no experience or whatever, it's really hard to find out what is the right thing to do and yeah, that's been my experience so far, and I mean, still I've only been doing it for like just over a year, but it's changed so much. Like, definitely changed more this year than I've ever changed in my life. Yeah. So, yeah,
Mm,
and yeah.
absolutely.
So, what's your like? I don't know. How's it been like where you're living now? Like with everything going on with the virus and stuff. Like, has it impacted you much or?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's only strengthened myself and everybody that I'm living with here. What's going on right now, I feel, is a lot more than just something physical. It's more of an awakening or a mass shifting of the consciousness on the planet, and I feel it a lot um, of like a shift in the way that like I'm perceiving reality, and each day is like a whole new world for me, and a real all these realizations that are coming to me of what it is that I'm here to do and who I truly am, and um, like prioritize and where my priorities are at. And um, when you're restricted from like certain distractions, such as like being able to go out into the cities and explore and everything, and you're sort of more isolated, even though like I wouldn't even call myself isolated where I'm at now because we have like hundreds of acres of land that are on this property. So even though like we're technically not allowed to go out anywhere past a certain time here, we have like all this land to explore. So we're not even isolated by any sense of the word. It's just that there's certain restrictions on food that we can get. So it's been a little difficult for all of us to stay on like a more raw lifestyle because there's not as much fruits and stuff and veggies that are available. But overall, like, right now upstairs, everybody's chatting and like playing games and everything. And we're always doing workshops together. We're doing like yoga workshops and hypnotherapy and silent meditations and a lot of workshops learning about how to do like this permaculture, um, which the community I'm living in now, just for those who don't know, it's raw vegan permaculture community where we're living a zero waste lifestyle in harmony with nature and basically working with all life forms that are on this land in a perfect um, balance to allow the animals, the insects, and the plants to all thrive together. And this way, it's actually restoring this land that used to be used for like cattle farms, and it was basically completely destroyed. And now it's been about 5 to 7 years that this project has been going on, and it's now like a thriving fruit forest. So it's absolutely like magical just to see how much has changed over that short course of time. And even just me being here within the past month and a half, so many people have come and left, and the whole vibration of the place completely shifts around, and you get all kinds of people with different talents and skills, and um, you're constantly um, like in a whole new environment. And it's like, although now we're basically nobody can come or leave, so we just got who we have now. We've got about 19 people total on this whole um, this whole community, which is like spread out between several different like houses and properties. But all of us have taken this opportunity to uh, reconnect back with ourselves and um, like let go of all that doesn't serve us even more, and boosting our immune systems and boosting our fulfillment in life overall, not just from what we're doing on the physical level, but through every single aspect of what it means to be healthy, like for, there's like the aspect of meditation and yoga, and also the aspect of purifying your consciousness through um, reconnecting back to that the source within you, whatever that means for you, like the God within you. And you do that by um, a lot of like cleansing yourself on all levels. And for me personally, I like to do a lot of like prayers and going within and giving offerings with like altars and um, using myself, seeing myself as a reflection of everybody else, and living life from a perspective that like nobody that is free from separation, basically, and seeing how everything is connected and unified. And that's what this whole project is about, is connecting us with the environment around us, you know what I mean? So it's a pretty it's a little brief description of how this situation of what's going on in the world has impacted our community. How about you? How's what's been going on changed your reality, or has it not really affected too much for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's completely different. I mean, I'm somewhat jealous of where you are right now in a way because it sounds amazing. And you said there was 19 people in your community, or was that right?
Right now, yeah.
Yeah. So that's
Hmm.
a really close knit community. So that's, yeah, really good. But like you said, you've got heaps of land. You're not isolated at all. That sounds like great. But I mean, it is a challenge. One thing that like I haven't been that connected with the raw food community as of late, but I do believe that for some people it must be a challenge at the moment because obviously, like a lot of people can't eat 100% raw anymore, and for me it wasn't a big deal because I wasn't eating 100% raw just before it happened, and so it didn't really like affect me too much. And I think it's a good thing that happens that because if we're eating raw food, we shouldn't be at the same time like dependent on that and see eating foods that are cooked as bad or however. Like I don't know if people see it like that way, but for me, I went through a phase where I was when I was really strict at raw. I saw as eating cooked foods as like um, being not good for you, and I feel like that's an unhealthy relationship to food. Like I don't think there's no right or wrong way to eat. It doesn't really matter if we're not eating 100% raw, but obviously, if you're eating 100% raw, you're going to get those benefits. Like, um, and if you're not, then you're not going to get those benefits. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, and you can still attain like high results of like spiritual development and all of that. I think. But yeah, that's my perspective now. And yeah, getting into it, so like, I mean, really, it hasn't at the beginning, like when we first like kind of found out about it. Didn't bother me at all when I just found out there was this virus. I think, yeah, okay, whatever. That's another thing in the media I, that I wouldn't pay attention to too much. I'd just be aware of it. But then I kind of freaked out a little bit when my Reiki teacher and I, like, we do music production together, and we were producing a song on this day, and we were just talking about the conspiracy theories that are out there, and one of them was in videos that I showed you, the London Real video that I showed you. I don't know if you watched it, but um, that video has this conspiracy theory about
Yeah.
there's this like fourth or like three people that want to kind of take over the world that have all the power basically, and that's that apparently according to this like theory is that they um, pretty much force the virus onto like certain countries and they let it affect people, like a whole heap of people, which let it spread for a reason for them to have control in terms of like economic currency and like basically uh, they don't want any kind of cash anymore. They just want electronic payments and that kind of thing. And so this was kind of wasn't freaking me out, but I was kind of like, okay, I felt like there was force against me kind of thing. Like there's always this sinister force in the world kind of like trying to bring humanity down. It's kind of like the good and the bad duality. And honestly, like whether everything is true or not, I don't know. It could be true. It could well be true, and it could be something that's real. And there's good evidence that that's true. But at the same time, I don't think it really matters if it's actually true or not, because really, what's affected us and what this virus has kind of done is a really big thing, in my opinion, um, in a lot of ways, because really what it's done is woken people up and it's affected the whole world. Like literally this is the first time, like in my lifetime, that the whole world is affected by something. We all literally had to connect. And it's just like we're all in the same boat now. It's like nobody has like one up on anybody, like no country has one up on anybody, and that's what I think is a really good thing because it's causing people to connect and reach out and help each other and kind of balance things out. Because what was happening, what is currently happening in like the the Western world is like we're always greedy and we always want more, and like in general I'm speaking that people are working and they're always focused on money and economics and development, and it's just like that is not healthy and that's not sustainable. Obviously that's what this virus is bringing people to realize, like some of us already maybe have realized this, but it's really bringing it to like the general population where everybody face this, and we're kind of forced to connect with each other whether we want to or not. And at the same time, we're also forced to go within and really fix ourselves because, like with self isolation, like depending on what your living situation is, like, I mean, I'm not living by myself at the moment, and um, that's forced me to connect with the people that I'm living with, whether I like it or not. But it's a good thing that I'm living with people that I actually like living with. But like for some people that wouldn't be, like you'd be forced to kind of get along. Or if you're living by yourself, you're forced to face yourself completely. And in a way, it's a great thing because you're forced, like you're forced to like deal with whatever you need to deal with, and like it's kind of just putting a stop on this like hamster wheel that people are constantly chasing and doing stuff like that never stop doing stuff and never sit still, just forcing them to sit still. So I think that's a good thing. I mean, in a way, it hasn't affected my living situation really because I'm pretty like happy and yeah, just happy doing what I'm doing, like staying home, isolated, and just playing music all day, and um, that's all I really care about. So it doesn't affect me too much. But I was worried a little bit about the shops running out of food for a little while because when I was talking about the conspiracy theory, like that freaked me out because this teacher of mine thought that Australia, where I'm living, would go into lockdown for 2 weeks, and this was something that like he um, intuitively thought was going to happen, and it was looking like a lot of people were saying that it would happen. And I'm surprised that Australia hasn't gone into full lockdown, considering the UK and the US is very strict. However, we're not. We've got a lot of restrictions, but we're not in full lockdown. We can still go out, but whenever you go out, you've got to really be careful, and everything's highly sanitized and maintain social distancing. Um, but like, yeah, nothing bad's really happening. I mean, it's pretty good if you ask me, but that's my experience. It's been an emotional experience a little bit, but yeah, I've got like a lot of positive things from what's going on, basically. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that and the virus and that? I got a lot of points to talk. So if we get off topic or we run out of things to talk about, I've got like a lot of points that I wrote down because yeah, I've got many insights about this thing. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, a lot of what I've been like following and looking into has been like very similar to what you were talking earlier about, this whole conspiracy about like this virus being used to uh, basically collapse the dollar and create a cashless society and all of this. And I've digged pretty deep into that, and I think it's very important to be aware of the agendas that are at play here. But at the same time, we have to realize that all of this is a mirage. And if we want to get down to the truth of what is really going on, it can only be known as much as it's felt. And so you can read a bunch of articles or watch a bunch of videos that logically make sense and give a detailed analysis of like this whole military technology and like this whole rollout of martial law and all that. That's all dandy. But those truths can be known without being felt. So you can watch a video and that's great, but the difference is it's like kiddie stuff to recognize a bad guy, but it's godly status to lift yourself out of that into this hyperborean um, status, saying that that's a shadow anyway. So if I wish to release that, shouldn't I disengage from the shadows that are within? And so, for example, like I've got this carpet below me and I have a shadow that I can see on this carpet, and I know that that shadow is me. But if I try to get into an argument with that shadow, then I'm basically a schizophrenic at that point. But you look at some for example, like a movie like Peter Pan or something. In that movie, he's basically immortal because he's from Neverland beyond the rainbow. In the beginning of the story, he's chasing his shadow, and unless he merges back with it, he can't get back to the Neverland is what they call it. And so you have to merge with what's branded as evil and recognize that as like something you can run from. And then the more you run from it, you'll see that it chases after you. But then if you think that something's out to get you the whole time without realizing that you're the one that's running and the shadow is only just catching up with you where you're going, you know what I mean? And so my whole thing is like, how about we stop running, look that shadow in the eyes, and not in order to draw a gun, but to open our arms up to it with our hearts. And that is what true healing is. That's where true healing lies. So going back to that idea of how like service to yourself is like looking at all the parts of yourself and seeing what's wrong within yourself. And so if um, everybody on this planet was in service to themselves in this way, not through like greed or gluttony or lust, but if we all did this in a pure way, then wouldn't that create a strong reality where we have a very potent divine order of how um, things are run in this world? I think, yeah, I think that we would have a completely different reality if that's how everybody was. But it's how everyone has been reflected in this magic mirror, is that like everybody wants to bend over backwards with their heads on their knees, and we wonder why deficiency is seen and felt within this reality, why everybody feels like they're lacking something. And so I don't recommend that we have this egotism of the self is harmonious when we recognize this truth within. And so it's interesting if you look at something like the Ten Commandments telling you what not to do, like don't kill and don't steal, like this is supposed to be some kind of divine guideline. Well, within the laws of energetics and harmony, we realize that we don't want to harm another being, and living souls know that we haven't aimed to cause any harm at all. So it's something that when you align more with your own truth, then you don't have to go through and like talk about what it is that you shouldn't do because it's already intuitively known. And so like any harm onto ourselves that we've done has been a result of the embedded trauma within ourselves. And so this whole experience that we have is about like a heart-based consciousness and nothing else. And it sounds very fluffy and idealistic, but if you really look at it, the heart knows nothing but expansion and beauty and wishes to convey exactly that. And that's what living from the heart means. So we can know what to do by connecting with truth within rather than um, going into this duality of what is right and what's wrong. And if we're doing that, then we're really operating from a space of what are our wants rather than what are our needs. And all the ancient texts are saying this, and deep down that this is exactly how, like, the most efficient way to live in this reality is. This very deep down, that everything casts a shadow. And it's a very unpopular truth because it recognizes that everything's going according to plan and there's nothing to oppose, but there is much to harmonize with and understand. And we say this word understand because that's what it's about. You're not understanding, you're not standing under that which you're trying to become or internalize. Like, you can stand under many beliefs or narratives or perspectives, but until you process that which you observe within your reality, uh, you'll be asking yourself, where's the truth? You'll be like, oh, this one person says this, another person says that, but you can't keep stand under or overstanding. You have to understand and bring into your own consciousness, and that's where the magic lies. And so every single experience that you have becomes completely magical and full of synchronicities and coincidences and events. Even just sitting in a room with a plain room with like nothing going on, it's still a magical atmosphere because you recognize that you are a simulation of your higher self in this hologram or this reality. And what we're doing right now is we're getting to the finish line where we can, where we know that, like, the only thing that the divine or God, whatever you want to put that word to, asks of you to do is to incorporate your own divinity into this reality and become the creator of your reality. And so you see what happens to those that adhere to this humanity without recognizing that inner nature or that inner divine nature that people, most of them in this reality, mostly everybody externalizes God, and says, and everyone says, I am not God, like I'm not the only one that's out there. And what I'm saying is that it's not like you're the only divine being out there or you're the only God out there, but um, this monotheistic idea of like this God ruling us that we have to reach up towards is a very dark age, archaic idea as far as I'm concerned. And like, I feel like the hand of God is like tugging at us in many forms, and some of them seem very scary and parasitic, like the Illuminati, or like these whatever you want to call people at the top. And that is really just fear that's actually propelled us into this inner journey. And how can we maintain something that's bad or evil? Because if a shadow can propel you into the light, that shadow was really light the whole time, tricking you when you're in a state of not knowing. So for all intents and purposes, there's only you and your interaction with self, of how it connects to your experience. And so that's very confusing to understand, but that's how it's meant to be. It's meant to be confusing. And we have these different archetypes of wisdom, how we think that, like, wisdom is like this meeting between of what's insane and what's divine, because like what some people consider wisdom is really what another person considers foolish. You know what I mean? Like, I can tell you all this, some people are going to interpret it as me speaking the truth. Some people are going to interpret it as like, oh, I'm crazy out right now speaking pure, like, insane bullshit or whatever. But it ends up being the same, because the closer I get to the truth of divinity, the closer I get to that state that can only be interpreted by those of the same wavelength. And so we're in an age where we're attracting all that we think about, and we're in that law of attraction age. So like what I'm saying is that the more I'm speaking about this and the more I speak my truth, then all that I'm going to get reflected back into my reality is people that are on the same wavelength, and those that are not in alignment with the same frequency that I'm on. Basically, it's not like I have to force them out of my life, but they just sort of go their own way, and they they can't stand to hear these kind of truths, so they have to distance themselves automatically. And it's quite interesting to see how in my journey that like the more I get deeper into this work and the more I progress myself, then I feel a lot less resistance from others. And um, like even speaking with my own parents and friends and family, they're starting to get this a lot more. But and those that aren't, they're automatically just removed from my life without me having to actually do anything. You know what I mean? So it's like the distractions get removed from you automatically the more that you focus on what it is that truly matters. And so that was a very long, I guess, explanation, but at the same time, that was only just a brief explanation of what I feel is going on in this world right now and how is the best way to deal with it. Um, and I'm curious to hear what your perspective on that is. Like, we have to find that, you feel like we have to find that balance of, um, you know, realizing these agendas that are being played out, and uh, what is the best way for us to prepare on this physical level, and or do we have to um, or do we have to focus more on what is it that is going on the more energetic levels, and uh, how can we deal with this from a place of realizing that everything's just a reflection of ourselves. So that's my question for you. Where do you feel like that balance has to be struck?
Yeah, well, what you said was profound. uh, yeah, it's great. And yeah, like in terms of um, like I think obvious, like to me, being, in tune with yourself on an energetic level and seeing everything as energy and a reflection of yourself is always the most important thing, and it's the way that you're going to have the most impact um, on the world and on yourself. Because I mean, all in all, like everything is God and everything is one. But at the same time, we are living in a physical illusion, if you want to call it that. And there is things that you need to be aware of in a way, like because I totally get it, because like I used to be so focused on just my internal, just raising my own consciousness, and I mean I'm still, that's my number one priority always, but at the same time, because of what's been going on, I think I've become more aware of what's going on outside, and I guess that did bring that fear up with that conspiracy theory when I found out about that. But at the same time, as soon as I reflected on that and sat on it for a little bit, I realized what was going on was that obviously, like, there is no, in a sense, I can't say there is or there isn't. Like, there is no, in a sense of duality, there is a sinister force. There is a people out there that are unaware, that have big egos or whatever, and do want, are living in states of fear themselves, and because of that, they do destructive things, which causes things. And it's not a three people in the world; it's majority of the population. But the people that have the most power have more impact. I could say, I could be wrong on that, because everybody has impact. It doesn't matter if you are just a regular person, like, or if you're in a person in some kind of authority. Like everybody plays their role, whether they see it or not, and it's everybody's responsibility to uh, play their role within society the best they can. But having said that, like uh, people who aren't aware, people who don't know what aren't in touch with their intuition, you obviously, like, if you see everything as one, you can't do anything to anybody, and you can't think anything of anybody that is like negative, because that's going to come back on you. It always comes back on you. It never affects them. um so seeing everybody as God and everybody as doing what it is perfectly that they need to be doing, and because whatever state of consciousness they're currently is perfect right now, and they couldn't be any other way. And like that's coming from a place of true love, where you see everybody in that way, whether it is, even if they are doing things that are crazy and are harming the environment, uh, they can be forgiven because that's what they know, and there is always a reason for that. Yeah, like you said, it is messy and it's complicated because the mind cannot understand it. The mind cannot grasp reality and understand all these pieces put in place. But it all has a perfect reason. And I can see in my own life everything that has ever happened. Like you said, like the darkness really is the light. Just um, like it's bringing the light back that you thought wasn't there, but it was always actually there. And it's just you weren't aware of it. And yeah, like all the destructive things that have happened in my life, all the things that the mind is negative, are really the most positive, and the things that have changed, that have made me the person that I am. And so like I couldn't ever look at anything that's ever happened to me that is bad, because none of it's bad. Like, and I've been through a lot of shit. Like I've been through a lot of hard things. Like my dad died when I was 8, and like I was living in foster care, and I had an eating disorder, and um, there's more to the story than that, but I'm not going to get into. I don't like talking about the past, because you put the past in the past, and you just learn from it, and you see it as it is. You don't have to uh, go back on it once you've dealt with it. But from all those things, like, there were some of the best things in my life, and I'm really grateful for, because if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be on this journey, and I wouldn't have like awakened to myself and known who I truly was. And but yeah, with that balance, I think I went off on a tangent a little bit with your question, but I don't know exactly if there's an exact line that everybody should have, but I think it's everybody's responsibility with their level of consciousness at the current time to go within and do what it is for themselves, but also be aware of what's going on outside. Because I know for myself that if I'm always doing internal work, um, I'm not grounded. If I'm not grounded, then you go outside and it can be easy to misperceive things that are going on. So at that doesn't affect me so much now, but it used to affect me. So I don't know if that is the correct way to answer your question, but everybody needs to be aware of what's going on externally and how to respond to their environment. I mean, because if you're truly like in harmony with yourself, you're in harmony with your environment, whatever environment that is, whether it appears to be destructive or like if it's somewhere it's like good, like for example, like I see that as like a harmonious environment. Like if you're living in like a third world country or something, you wouldn't be living in a you wouldn't call that a harmonious environment. But like if you were awake and you were aware of yourself, you would be in harmony with that. But that means that maybe you have to be in some kind of survival mode, because the ego is just trying to survive. And in a sense, that's what we're all doing at the same time, even though we're awakening and we know that nothing really matters. Like I know that nothing really matters, not to my life. At the same time, while I'm here, you want to do the best that you can do and be who you really are and show that to the world. But uh, like yeah, so in terms of there is a balance, and the balance depends on the situation, I guess. If you're living it, would be my answer. Like if you're in contact with the outside
Mhm.
world,
Yeah.
you've got to be more aware of what's outside, but not be affected and be completely detached from it. So yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah. It it's a very good answer. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I appreciate you like really diving deep into how that connects with your own life and um, things like that can working through that in this way or and even what other ways you work through it is like something that removes a lot of weight off your shoulders. And so I'm glad that you did that. And so I would definitely agree with you on what you said, how it depends on our situations because, people that are living, yeah, in this country where I'm at right now, this is a developing country. A lot less people have time to be focused on these things. They have to be more worried about their survival. And so it's more important for them to be aware of what's in their immediate environment. Whereas others that have been lucky or fortunate enough to live a life where they don't have to constantly worry about their survival, then they have an opportunity to focus more on what's going on within themselves and what's going on beyond what they perceive in their current environment. And it's like when you bring up that word awakening too, that's like a really tricky thing for me as far as how everybody interprets awakening, because I'm really surprised how some people they'll say, you know, um, I encourage everybody to like talk about what's going on with the evil things in this world and like sharing information about like the elites and things like that and doing that in order to wake up people because that makes me question for myself what really is awakening. It's like we can identify all these explanations and topics and dive deep into them. But if we're not ourselves strengthening ourselves at all, then and we're ignoring our own consciousness and art and that component of it, then we're seeing awakening as like propelling articles about vaccines and like the evil cabal. And I don't really call that awakening, to be honest. I think I call that like identifying wrongs in the world, and we can play that game. Like that's a never ending game. And I've been in this world like of quote unquote awakening since like 2014 when I was in like eighth grade. Um, although my whole life I've always had this inquisitive nature, it was actually around eighth grade when I really got into a deep enough depression to myself where I said like enough is enough. I'm gonna stop externalizing everything that's going on within me, and I'm gonna see how all of this has been a lesson for me, and I'm going to take responsibility to uh, create discipline within myself. And like there's no other way to increase the quality of your existence than to discipline yourself. And so I started by like forming different practices like meditation and um, removing certain things that were distractions in my life and giving up things like drugs to as a means of escaping problems that I had to deal with. And I would, at the same time, while doing all of that, I would be looking into a lot of these conspiracies, such as like the bloodlines and the martial law and like Bohemian Grove and like all these things. And the more I transcend, I see that like people that are also in this this truth community, um, they're remaining at these gates where they're kind of trapping themselves in a box, saying like, "Yeah, let's wake up the planet." But what I mean is like the Earth is an anagram for the heart, and so what real awakening is to me is like a rearranging of your heart and saying, I'm going to put back the pieces of myself together, because one less fragmented individual is one less burden that the Great Mother has to deal with. So the way that I see it is servicing yourself leads to servicing the collective, and there really is no difference between ourselves and anything else. So, the reason this is so fundamental to understand this principle of like so within, so without, is that like we become so open that we share this information with everybody that we meet that's willing to be open to it. And by sharing that, um, we're basically making an impact on others' lives just by this transaction that we're doing now. Like I'm awakening parts of myself because I'm getting things out that I needed to share, and in return, everybody that's watching this is also awakening parts in themselves just by hearing me speak about this. And um, so I find myself needing to have more distance with people that are seeing outside sources as uh, the cause of their suffering, and I find myself more drawn to people that are being taking more responsibility for what it is that's causing suffering in their life, and seeing how it's really mostly a result of how we perceive the world. And so people are going to argue about uh, these these different hallucinations and these illusions of this reality, such as like the darker forces and all that. But there's a very small number of us that are going to take the other route, which is to recognize what is it that we actually are, and why are we really here. And this is what a true alchemist does, from my perspective. It's looking at something, saying, we have a problem, or there's this scenario that I don't want to interact with anymore. And we're asking ourselves, what energetic has caused this? And what can I do with this lead? Or what can I do with this, like this problem that I have? If I do this inner work within myself, then I can transmute that lead into gold, or I can transmute that problem into a solution. And then I'm empowering myself to uh, to take this thing that I see as a problem and use it to strengthen me. And that's where I feel like the most work is going to be done within ourselves. And that's what true awakening is. And so, like, I think that, um, we should like avoid the media and stick to what it is that we feel is going to be for our highest benefit, but at the same time we have to be aware, of uh, what is going on in this reality. And like, yeah, that really just ties into my last question for you. But this question that I want to ask you is, what does awakening mean for you after what I just said?
Funny because I was gonna like answer that question anyway. Um, Yeah, but awakening for me is like similar to what it is for you. I mean, it really is just the inner journey and really seeing what it is within yourself that uh, is out of harmony, which you need to go within and change and face. Because really, it's just all our own like demons that we need to face that are gonna. Obviously, if everybody was awake, like then there wouldn't be problems in the world. But but seeing that as well, like I know that currently not everybody's just gonna wake up tomorrow, and so that's that level of being aware of who is there. But at the same time, it's still just a reflection, and it's still just a reflection. There is no external force out to get you. It's all one thing, and it's whatever in this moment that you're going to bring into this moment that you're going to choose to focus on. Because really, if you're awake, you realize that you can only focus, you can only hold one emotion at one time. You can only be focused on positive or negative. And if you're always focused on positive every situation, always you can always transcend and always raise your consciousness. And not necessarily need to focus on anything, but just be aware. Um, and the more that you awaken to yourself, then you're going to everything will be in harmony. And like you said before, like any relationship, any people in your life that are not on that journey, they just fall out. And I've seen it in my own life too. And I mean, it is to me, it's in my experience, it's only a few people that actually do this, like do what true awakening is, because the spiritual community is vast, and like, there's so many. I see so many people going through like things that I'm going down like dead end things and like getting caught in like traps and stuff because they're looking for an external thing to help them. They're looking for an external thing to help them because that seems easier than facing yourself, because the one thing that the ego doesn't want to do is face itself and admit like whatever has happened, like because really we're all causing our own suffering. When you realize who you truly are, you know you're the cause of your own suffering, which is empowering because that means you can fix it if you look at it that way. But if you look at it in the terms that you're responsible, like sometimes I think that can bring up guilt in people, um, and you have to transcend that. Like, and I had to transcend that myself, any guilt that I feel, because that's like obviously lower consciousness, and just transcend into that state of love, where everything is just love, whatever it is. Like it's just love. Like I don't know how to explain that, but yeah, awakening is facing yourself and knowing who you are, and not putting that not looking at externally for anything else to fix you. You got to do the work yourself and find that strength within you, because nobody else can do it. Because obviously there's only you. There's only you and your perception of how you see everything. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it does. And I think you brought up a really good point too, um, saying how like everything is love. Just because that's something I wanted to go into a little bit, because like a lot of people, they'll say, you know, all we need is love to change this world, and love is the highest energy. And while I agree with that from a certain perspective, I think that's only one lens that we have to observe reality through. And we need to not only anchor in love, but we also need to anchor through encouragement and determination, and the uh, the hatred within us as well. You know, because we all of us have these two sides, like the masculine and the feminine. And the masculine, it makes order from the chaos, but it needs that feminine baseline to grow healthy from. And so like the mission that we have here is like finding that inner child within us, that soft nature that is the feminine, to nurture us, and anyone can do that in a way where they're acting and giving like a meaningless direction. But to do this with a universal purpose, knowing that this is needed for transformation, um, that is like a force to be reckoned with. And that's where the masculine aspect comes in, where you're imposing uh, that force onto the world. And so I feel like um, these qualities of resistance and nurturing, these are like the foundations of uh, where we should be living our life from. And so that kind of brings up the question of um, like what really is love, and where is that balance that needs to be struck between embracing that the love within us, and also at the same time balancing that with the part of us that is not so loving. And so, to give my brief answer on what I feel like love is, I think that like there's it's like something that we can't say there's one definitive answer to what love is, you know what I mean? Like um the word, like any word that we give meaning to is where it becomes completely subjective, you know what I mean? So like realizing that reality is meaningless is a very liberating truth, and it it helps you to realize that anything in this life only has the meaning that you give to it. And so when I ask the question, what is love? It's something that that I can't answer it for you. Only you can answer it for yourself. But from my perspective, I would say the more you love yourself, like the more you don't need to look for it in other places or things, and you can still receive and cultivate love from others, but you're not really relying on that as like some form of joy for your life. And so like this is something that also ties into how I feel like life is a simulation of love. And another way of saying that is life is really about learning to not to fear. And I feel like everything is really love. You know, from one perspective, even evil being like one twisted form of love. And so we have this evil or this hatred within us that can only be removed by heightening our capacity to love unconditionally, because unconditional love doesn't have any exclusion. Um, because loving friends and loving your family, that's something that's really easy to do, but it's just as important to love the darker aspects of the world and within yourself. And so no one can force you to love, and you can't even force yourself to do it. But what you can do is awaken to that selfless, godlike nature within you that is under all of these layers of ego that we've created. And when we experience that divine love, that's a complete surrendering. And so I feel like our mission is to align every expression and part of our being with love, but realizing what that word truly means, because that also does include the evil within us. And so another question that I can ask you here is, what is your definition of love?
Yeah, well, love, it's it's deep, it's profound, and like you said, I think there's a balance between, like you said, like the masculine and the feminine. If you want to, if you put it that way in that perspective, I see that there's love and then there's wisdom or truth, if you want to say. Like I see like that's kind of like love and there's light, and the light is masculine, and that's where I guess that gives us structure and direction and discipline in our journey. and like, because love is just pure acceptance of everything. Um, like, and that's that feminine side where you accept everything, like every part of yourself, every shadow, everything that's going on around you, every shadow of anybody else around you, um, is also acceptable because, like I said before, when I was talking about like everybody's current level of consciousness is acceptable, and there's nothing wrong with anything in the world or anything currently in your life, because wherever you are is where you need to be, and that's perfect, and everything is divine perfection because everything is just a process. It's always awakening and becoming more and more perfect. So love is just that acceptance of whatever it is. But yeah, at the same time, there is this, you need this balance of like uh, light and like the masculine, the discipline, the direction to sort of put yourself and in those challenging situations and face what you need to face, because I feel like with love, and I see it with my own life, and people around me who are really in that state of love all the time, and I see like uh, I don't know, especially like hippies and stuff. I'm not judging or anything, I'm just saying this is my perspective of like, if you're living in that constant love state, it's hard to kind of get anywhere and make any progress in the world that you want to, like if you want to create something that's really cool and you want to have some kind of impact in the world, it's hard to do that with just love, because if you're just doing that, you just can be blissed out meditating all day, um, doing yoga, eating fruit, whatever. You can just do that, and that's great, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you really want to uh, if you really want to have service, and I believe that we have a purpose, and that's the most joy and the most fulfilling thing to do in your life, is to you got to help yourself, obviously, but you've got to give back everything that you learned, because when you find out who you are, then you realize it's not about you. Whatever you do, whatever journey you went on, and that was, you have that story about it, and then when you transcend that story of your life, you realize that's not actually about me. This happened because I had to go through that, and now that I've gone through that, I know what I know. This is what this is what I'm doing. Like, I don't have to do it, but I want to do it, because the more I do, the better I feel, and the better everybody else feels. And it's just like the most you do in your life, and that's that bringing back masculine uh, into the love, because otherwise you can be just out all the time, and that's great, but how is that going to help everybody else? Because you can't connect with people who aren't in that state yet, and they won't understand it. So by having some kind of structure and using your mind in a strategic way, where it's not like your mind is uh, like when your mind is like your ego, and it's like getting in your way, but it's when you can use your mind because you're aware, and you see you can literally like see the thoughts in your mind, whatever you think, and when you can do that, everything in your life manifests, because all that other shit in your head was there before. It was preventing that flow, whatever you wanted to enhance your life. That's preventing that, because that's that negative energy, and that resistance really is a better word than negative energy. It's the resistance to your potential, because that brings up fear in a way, because it means you don't know where it's going to go. You can't predict anything. Nobody knows. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you've been through. Nobody knows. And that's what I was talking about with the vibe before. It's like, it's kind of bringing, at least to my awareness, that everybody's in this together. It doesn't matter if you're some like enlightened yogi, like even though like you don't know, nobody knows. Nobody knows what's going to happen. We can all predict, we can all make it estimate, and a lot of times we can do that and they can be quite accurate, but like nobody knows, and nobody can, like, and even when we have some kind of instinct, we could be wrong sometimes, like, because we can't see the future, we can only predict. And I feel like I'm getting off a tangent, I was saying, but like really, if you want to awaken and you want to really be fulfilled in life, you've got to bring both sides together. And that can be challenging because a lot of people probably out of balance. And yeah, I don't know. That's all I have to say about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm, yeah, that's very insightful. I appreciate that. Um, that's you put it very well. I mean, you put it to like that answer um, with saying how like if we want to make that real impact in the world, then we can't just be all the time in this blissed out meditative state. Or but there are people that do that. There's like the monks and stuff, and they do their own thing, and they're still making their impact on the world from the communities that they've established. And even me, like personally, I was considering even between going here or becoming like a monk in Thailand and just going to study meditation and remove like all forms of distraction from my life and be part of a community that's basically going to force me to uh, live up to a certain standard. And I feel like there's a lot of value in that. And uh, I just chose to be in a community where that has more values that align with me. Because personally, like I didn't really want to go in a community where not everybody was vegan, and it would have probably pushed me towards some other things, some other aspects that I wasn't in alignment with. So I feel like being in a community like that, or living a lifestyle like that where you're most of the time focused on your spiritual practices, but you're not um, integrating like that, you're not really seeing like the evil parts of the world and seeing where maybe you can make a difference there. um, it's got like each place has its purpose. And so what we have what we really need to be doing is um, discovering for ourselves where we feel like our purpose is, and where we can make the best impact. And sometimes it's going to be in a place where we just have to sit down and meditate and just be completely with ourselves, and like in our own sort of space and cultivating our own energy that way. But sometimes we have to put ourselves out into the mud and get our hands dirty and just like immersing ourselves with parts of reality that we don't necessarily want to uh, immerse ourselves with, because in the suffering, or in the um, like the parts of ourselves that we don't want to look at, that's where usually the most growth can happen from, like you were saying earlier with like your experiences in life. So like it was just really insightful the way that you put that, and I'm just adding on to that. And I feel like we've made a very clear and concise explanation of how like how our perspectives of reality differ from a lot of ways that most people view this world, because there is a very large agenda of the media and religion, and even the foods that we consume, and all these things that are toxic, that are wanting to have us imbalanced on one side, meaning that there's an agenda to have like men being more like the women, and then the women playing more of the role of the man. or playing both sides. And I've seen that in my life where like my mom would have to be taking care of the whole family, or I've seen it in my life where like people that um, people like that are men that are just in especially in like music industries and stuff that are like displaying this really feminine qualities, such as like wearing things that are like dresses, whatever it could be, and just even like eating, seeing how uh, certain ingredients in foods can imbalance your hormonal levels and things like that. And it's clearly an agenda that's being played out on us, and it's something that like we really have to work on because you know, if one is out of balance, if our masculine aspect is out of balance, then automatically our feminine is as well. So we have to find a way to merge the two. And merging the two is not like dissolving uh, like any form of separation, but it's really it's realizing that there is the unity and the separation at the same time between both of these aspects. So like we have to, you know, have a certain part of us that's masculine and a certain part of us that's feminine, but we have to know when to uh, let one aspect shine and then let one aspect take the back seat. And so it's all determined by whatever scenario that we're in life. And each moment um, is really a present. That's why I call it the present moment. It's a gift to grow from. And, you know, by balancing these aspects, that's where we're really getting in alignment with what is for our highest growth and balancing. And yeah, that's really just something that I wanted to add on to what you said. Um, is there anything else that like you wanted to really get into or talk about for tonight?
Yeah, we brought up one point, I guess, that it is knowing yourself really, like everybody, like it's different for everybody, like you said before, and sometimes it becomes like you said, like living in an environment that's really harmonious and where you can just meditate um nature all the time, and sometimes what's right is to expose yourself to the harsher aspects of reality and live in a not so good environment. And there's no right or wrong with either. It's just whatever you need at the time. And I've definitely experienced that in my own life because I've gone through living in uh, good environments and living in like not so good environments. I haven't lived in an environment like you are at the moment, so I can't speak from that perspective. But uh, like there is no right or wrong because really like when you're connected within it, nothing will affect you. And challenging yourself, like for me, this is what I had to face before. I didn't want to really live in what I see as in harmonious environments. I wanted to live a nicer environment, but now I see this as something that I need to do for myself, but also for other people because it brings more awareness of what's going on externally for me, and it's also a challenge for me to, for example, like I live with people that are non-vegan, and that has been a challenge for me to not judge them and to act in a place of love where I don't see anything wrong with that. And that can be hard because I see a lot of people in the vegan community and in raw, especially in just vegan community, where it's really easy to judge, even if you're aware of people, because it impacts myself because I don't like the smell of meat, for example, and that impacts myself. I have to transcend that and get over it and see it as that it's not all about me. And that's what they're currently doing at this state. And really, if everything is all one, there's nothing wrong with eating meat. But having said that, I do not want to eat meat, and I do not see that as being good for myself to eat meat. But I can't judge people for doing that. So yeah, that's just an example of how like sometimes being in an environment uh, that doesn't seem optimal can be a good thing because of that challenge and uh, that awareness. But it depends on what you need at the current time, and everybody can only answer that for themselves. And I also had another thing about love in a sense that it's probably not what we were talking about exactly with love before, but also love is doing what it is that you love in your life for your life purpose. And that's something that for me that also helps you to navigate what you want to do and where you want to be in your life as well in terms of environment. Because for me, my love has always been music, and like that's my main love in life, really, because it's my main joy. It's what I love doing the most and where I complete my force. And that means sometimes I have to make sacrifices, and that's why I've made this sacrifice at the time where I'm living in a more city-ish environment where I prefer to live in a more of a like nature environment. I mean, I live in Ecuador, so it's not city, which is great. I love New York. But you know, I'm living in a place where I can access services and people that have connections in the music industry, and that I can therefore I'm able to expand myself in that way, like and develop myself as a musician. And that also helps to develop my own awareness because I'm pursuing what I am about. And especially with music, why I love it so much is it's transcending what it is that can be spoken. It's when you really tap into different emotions. And with music, you can say so much without saying anything, you know, and used in a destructive way too, because you can play sad music where you can express those emotions, and that has, depending on how you want to see it, whether you see it as good because you're expressing yourself in that current state, which is good because you're getting it out there. But at the same time, like if somebody's constantly listening to sad music, that's going to affect their consciousness, because uh, that's bringing you into that sad state if you're listening to music, because that's how profound music is. And I mean, it's not the be all and end all, obviously, but uh, that's what I want to say as well about love and life purpose, and finding that is really important. I believe it. That's also what the coronavirus has helped me to do within myself, because it's helped me give me time to reflect on my life. Because before I was, or even still currently, I'm working in a job that I'm not really enjoying. It's not bad. It's pretty decent, and I could say that it is, and I want to be grateful for that at the same time. But if I'm not living my purpose, then I'm not doing. That's not coming from a place of self love, for one, and it's not having the most profound impact in the world. So if I have to put myself in a situation where my financial, like I could be living in the unknown where I don't know how it's actually going to work. Yeah, but that I need to do that for myself. I need to do that for the world, and just trust. And everybody's got to have that trust within them, because really it always works out. But sometimes you really have to put yourself into those risky situations to see, because otherwise, if you never do that, and you're always living in like your comfort zone where you know that you're always gonna, like, you know how things are gonna turn out, and you're never gonna really challenge yourself, and you're never really gonna expand to your full potential. So, yeah, I wanted to add that in there. That's something that has
Mm,
going on for me in terms of coronavirus. Has helped me. So yeah.
mm. I really like how you said that, especially the part about like, well, you're in a job right now, and you're saying like, I could be, um, maybe living some sort of like freelancing lifestyle where I'm not sure. Ooh, can you hear me still?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you could be living in some sort of like freelancing lifestyle where you're not exactly sure where your next dollar is going to come from or where what your next job is going to be, while doing what you love. But like, um, it can be like a really challenging thing to do that. But when we have this faith in ourselves and this faith in the universe that everything is going to work out, then we'll find a way to make our ends meet no matter what it takes. That's what I've found in my life to be true. Especially even coming here, uh, like on a really low budget with people in my family that had like owed me money and I wasn't sure if they were going to pay me back. And so I'm getting down to like my last few dollars here. And then I finally got a payment from one of my family members because I knew that things were going to work out. And so like having um, that intention when you set out on an adventure where you're not exactly sure how things are going to work out, you you really have to just cultivate that within yourself, that trust, you know, in the universe. And it's very delicate uh thing because it's like it's like when you're standing up and then uh you're like maybe falling down backwards and you're asking your friend like catch me. You don't know if he's going to actually catch you or not. It's like that with the universe. It's like you got to trust that the universe is going to catch you and make sure that no matter what happens you'll be okay. And even if you go through some really tough times during a certain period, you know that it's all working out for your best benefit and what you really need at the time. And um, like there's not a more liberating feeling in the world than when you are truly trusting the universe that you'll be guided and supported exactly how you need to be. And even actually had a scenario today. I was at the waterfall taking a shower, and I was on my way back, and these rocks. It was really slippery from like it had just rained before this, and so like the rocks are really slippery, and so I slipped down on the rock. And now it was gliding. I glided down this one rock. It was like a really big one, but I I didn't panic or anything. I just like let myself glide down while I had my phone in my hand, and I just held my arm up so I made sure my phone didn't get wet. But like I landed like waist deep in the water, so it was like a really close call. And after that, I was like, "Whoa, thank you, universe! I knew that you would guide me and support me in that moment. That situation could have turned out way more worse than it did. Like I could have, landed and hit my head or something like that. But that situation just worked out in perfect alignment. And that's just how life is basically. Don't you have to be in that non-panicky state, knowing that things are going to work out, and then they will. Uh, like I said before, we're living in a universal law of attraction. So the thoughts that you have in your consciousness are the ones that are going to be reflected back into your world. Um, Even though it doesn't seem like that on a physical level, uh, that's exactly how it works. It's just that even when we're thinking all this positive self-talk or things like that, or we're trying to manifest something into our lives by speaking it into existence and we don't see the results coming right away, that's because there's still parts of us that we have blockages within that still have to be dealt with, and we have to recognize that, um, and have that patience, because patience is knowing that things are all going to happen in their own divine alignment, in their own divine timing. And that's one of the uh, most valuable qualities that we can cultivate, because otherwise it's going to be a lot harder to be content with this moment right now when we're going through certain adversities if we don't have that patience. And that's just another lesson I've learned within my life. So I wonder, I guess, how's that been for you, that whole journey of having the patience to know that things are going to work out when they need to, and um, like being completely at peace with where you are now, because I know it's not easy.
Yeah, well, patience is probably one of my biggest, problems, to be honest. It's something that I struggled with. I was impatient a lot before, and there's still some instances where I can be impatient. I'm tested enough to know that whenever I'm trying to rush it, it never works out. It never works out. There's no point in ever trying to rush anything or be in a rush, because really time is an illusion itself. And when you see that, there's no point in rushing. You're just adding resistance if you're rushing, and because of that, you're not going to get to where you need to be because you're not aware what it is you need at the current moment. Present in that moment, you know exactly what to do and what you need, and yeah. But I mean, you can take it in a different way as well. Like you need to have patience. Things we want to work out in our life, or like even things we want to heal in our life. Like healing, sometimes it doesn't happen overnight. With all things, some things you can heal overnight, but a lot of things you can't. And sometimes you just have to have that patience and that acceptance, that you're going to figure it out, whatever it is you know now you need to do. And it's just taking that next step each day, and what you need to do every day, like a new, almost like a new life to me now. Like, look, every day is like a new life, and it's learning so much. Like, I'm learning so much every day, and just going through that and seeing things differently every day with how I used to do things, and just letting all that go and not being attached to it. Uh, yeah, when you're not attached,
Mm.
well, 'cause you don't have to have anything a certain way, or you don't need to have it right now. Whatever you want right now is here right now. It's always right now, and you don't need anything externally because we get there. Whenever if you're like you've got some goal in mind, that you're looking for, or even just a situation in the future you're looking for, when you get there, it's just like it's never. If you were, if you had some kind of fantasy in your mind of how it was going to be, it turns out like that. But it turns out really great, usually. And if it doesn't, there's a reason, there's a lesson in it. And yeah, you just have that patience that you don't need to really look forward to anything either, or be excited about anything. Just present moment, and you don't need to force anything in the future. Just do what it is you need to do right now, because that's where you're going to have the most power. Yeah. For example, like with me,
Mm.
making music, like I realized that's a long process, and that's something that I constantly need to get better at. I don't need to be like some like famous star right now. It really doesn't matter, because even if that happens, I don't care anyway. Things that I need or I even want, but it's just like I guess what I want more is just to be able to like do it and not have to uh, sort of do anything else. Which obviously, like I was saying before, I had to let go of my job, not knowing now where the money's going to come from, but uh, just trusting that it will work out, and I know it will. But because that way I can give myself time to really do what it is that I need to do. Whether it's before, if I'm attached to like money or need survival, then I'm not giving myself that time to really pursue my dreams, and that's gonna just, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't need to do that anymore, and I feel like everyone needs to find that for themselves. Like it's just like when you make that you're going to not let this thing happen to you anymore, like whether it is some kind of illness you're going to deal with, you think you have, or you want to change your career, or you want to change the way that your relationships are, you've got to make that yourself whenever you make a decision. All the things that happen are really just pushing you towards making that decision. And depending on how much you need to go through, depends on your own experience and how long you're going to cling to whatever it is you're clinging to. But if you can let it go straight away and just let it go and push yourself into that uh, suffering and that or whatever, uh, cause your own suffering on purpose to deal with it, I guess. Um, that's something I do with fasting. But then that's the quicker that you're going to be able to do what it is you really want to do, I guess. That's all I have to say.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, definitely. Um, really appreciate you sharing that. And I think it's getting like we've gone on for quite a while now. So I just want to see if there's any closing topics that you want to talk about, and we can possibly continue this on another discussion. I'm just curious, is there anything else that you had that you wanted to speak about?
Yeah, I'll just check these points. Hang on. Because there was one, what I wrote down was summary conclusion in terms of like this stuff about like how, not that we need to know this, but it's just something interesting to talk about. It's like what will possibly happen in the future, in terms of like the world, if you want to talk about this, or if we could leave it for another time. Oh, and one other point was that one final note I wrote down was that I feel like young people, like you and I, like in this generation, have a lot of power at this time, um, to because we're better able to go with the flow. And this is something that I've been observing within my own life because I mean, you know, I've worked with a lot of people that are older, you know, 50s, 60s, and stuff, and that people, even people that are awake in spiritual community, like for example, my Reiki teacher, like really aware and in tune, but still, then these people do things differently to us because they've been through different experience, and I believe that to them there's more threat in the world that's going on at the moment because it threatens their current way of doing things, whereas our generation, we're kind of, in a way, like how I see it is like kind of just waiting for it to happen, you know, like kind of just like when is this in the world going to end kind of thing, because like obviously it's not sustainable. And uh, yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but that was something that I had there at my closing statement. So
Hmm. Yeah, we can touch on that briefly. Um, as far as my perspective on like what's going to be happening with the world and what is happening right now, I feel like from research I've done and from my own um, intuition and everything, that we're going through a shift right now called like shifting into the golden age. And if you study more about um, things that have to do with astrology and astronomy and what all of these different ancient cultures and texts have been saying for a very long time, I've been connecting the dots the best that I can, and it seems that it's quite possible that there are other civilizations that are living on this planet and all the way deep into like the center of the earth. And this kind of goes into like the inner earth theory, that there's like basically the core of our earth is not just like um, this ball of light that's like too hot for any living beings to live on it, but that in the inner earth is something called like the Garden of Eden, or like Hyperborea, or the civilization that lives there. Can't remember off the top of my head what their name is, but it's a civilization that is a lot more advanced than us, like thousands of years more advanced, and they're not physical beings. They're more indigo colored auric beings with like auric bodies that each, and there's four different kind of civilizations that are living here on Earth, within different layers leading into the inner Earth, and each of them is going through their own shift right now. And what we're going into is from, I think, the silver or the bronze age into the golden age. And that's a very um, positive overall thing for us right now, because it's deconstructing a lot of the lower frequencies. And what's going on right now, I feel like, is people that are vibrating at a low frequency, they're not able to withstand this massive collective awakening that's going on. And so what they're experiencing right now is a lot of detoxing and purging of this lower consciousness within them. And medical science is doing their best to interpret this from a physical perspective, but what I see is happening a lot more than just in the physical level. And so even after this shift of expanding into the golden age, there's no being that's going to require us to adhere to anything, which means that there's going to be control systems collapsing. And this can be intimidating because if it seems scary or it's a burden with fear and anger, like with this dualistic judgment that we have in this creation, where people feel like they need to be controlled on some level, or they need some kind of hierarchy of a structure, government to create order for them, then it will be something that they're going to resist. But there's a merging with like this light that is happening, and it's something that we can't escape. And like we have to transmute the parts of ourselves that are fear-based. And so basically all of those beings that are that have been doing the work to transmute them, like these lower aspects of themselves, and live on like these higher frequencies, are going to be given the opportunity to shift into new dimensions, or shift into new parallel timelines, whatever you want to call it. I feel like we're living in a kind of reality where we're shifting through different timelines, and that's when you experience deja vu, or what some people call the Mandela effect, or many synchronicities that you experience in your life. Those are really just you having a temporary awakening into another alternate reality that exists. And I feel like there's an infinite number of realities that exist in the present moment. And this whole awakening journey is also about tapping into that infinite field of what science is starting to call the quantum field, where they have been able to observe that matter is created by consciousness. Like if you look into the what's it called, like the string theory is a part of it, but there's like this one experiment that was done where they're able to observe that by looking into like a really like by looking at matter, it affected the way that it was structured. And when they weren't observing this particular piece of matter, then it was a completely different structure. And I will, if I can remember the name of it, I'll mention it, but it's something that you can look up. And so that's just like the scientific community catching up to what this quote unquote quantum field or is. And there's many people that do types of healings from all over that can do healings from all over the world. And I've gotten different sessions myself, in person and like over the phone sessions from energetic based healers that have their own practices that claim they don't exactly know what's happening, but that they're tapping into this quote unquote quantum field, or this field where of infinite possibilities. And so basically what I'm saying is that we're going to have a chance to experience that realm and shift into that, like not just um, feeling it or being able to like, tap into it on a certain level, but we can like fully integrate into that and basically uh, tran- transition our consciousness from this realm into that realm completely. And others will be here to learn more lessons, but I can link a video for you if you want to learn more about what I'm saying here. It's something that's very controversial, and there's some people here that I've talked about it with that align with this truth, this possibility, and they're the ones that have actually suggested it to me, even though I've like kind of been looking into this thing for a while now. I just haven't exactly resonated with it too much until just recently with everything that's going on, because it seems to correlate a lot with these um, these theories, quote unquote. Um, and there's others in this community that I'm living that think that that is complete bullshit. So, like, I don't know, maybe if you've heard of this inner Earth civilization theory, I wonder what your perspectives would be on it, even if you haven't heard of it, because um, it's quite like a very strange thing that how everything, like this whole virus, quote unquote, is spread throughout the world so fast. Like, I feel like there's a lot more to it than what we're being told, no matter whether what I was said is the case or not. Um, and that basically there is uh, a lot going on here that like goes beyond what the mainstream is telling us. So yeah, I'd be curious your answer as well, and what you feel is happening and what is going to be happening on this planet.
Yeah, definitely way more depth to it than we hear about. The reason for that being mainly, I think, is because, like I said before, like nobody really knows, and that's true that nobody actually knows. One person knows. We're making assumptions, and yeah, so we can never rely on the media. Like sometimes it things because we do like, I mean, I don't know about you, but like when I'm living here and I need to go out into the shops or something, I need to be aware of like these social distancing practices and things like that, because that is, we didn't need that. There is a lot of good in the actual like just main government that I've been realizing that I'm very fortunate to live in this country. Um, there is a reason for government and these kind of systems and that. Even if there's a lot of, I don't know, corruption in the world, but um, yeah, people, I'm lost. Like I have heard of what you're talking about with the inner earth thing. Haven't heard of it exactly in the terms of what you're saying about how it's an inner earth. The way I've heard about it more is I've read. I don't know if you've read the I Am books by Godfrey F. King. If you haven't, you should. You can download, read it online. Um, Maybe I'll put a link in the video as well. Um, it talks about something similar, but not in so much depth of what's going to happen, but just kind of like we're living in this age now where like there are infinite possibilities, and everybody's going through this shift in consciousness, which like even those who are unaware of it, like for example, like in my own life, like my own shift has like affected everything around me. and like even my family, who not of members of my family are interested in consciousness, work, growth, spirituality, whatever. They're not interested in that. But however, I've seen my own experience, especially when I've done Reiki, after I've done Reiki, is that they're literally up and they're going through these symptoms. However, there's a difference that they're unaware of what they're actually going through. And in the situation where I'm with them, I know what it is to do intuitively, but they're not aware because they haven't consciously chosen um, what is happening to them, if that makes sense. Because uh, it's for me, it's consciously wanted this, consciously seeking the light and this transformation because you something like you had enough of the suffering, you want to transcend that, but um, because of people around me being unaware of that, they're afraid because it's bringing them into the unknown and what is currently working for them. They're waking up and realizing it's not working for them anymore, but they don't know why this is kind of thing. Probably they didn't. I mean, on a soul level, they chose it, but they didn't choose it. Maybe they're not aware of it that they chose it. And in terms of everybody's waking up and like how I see it as well, the collective consciousness, like as a whole, if everything is one, when you wake up, the world wakes up. Since we're all waking up together, even the people that are not aware of that, and that everybody's making a shift, but those people that are less aware and have not consciously chosen and are creating resistance are going to stay stuck in their ways for a while until however many lessons they need to learn. And I mean, if you believe in like past lives as well, which I do, is that they have to go through many more to learn those lessons. And this shift is something that's happening over like probably a long time, and that like honestly, I don't know if I'm going to be alive that whole long to see this uh, change. That we'll be living in like a total golden age, or we may be living in times of Atlantis or something. Um, and yeah, but I don't know in terms of like how it's actually like because in this book, I Am Books, it's talking more. I've always seen it as something as like more like angels above rather than being in the earth, but I guess it's really just the same thing. It's just a different way of perceiving it when everything without is within. It's really hard to talk about, I guess, in a way that I don't know how people perceive what I'm. It's good to talk about this because I mean it's good to talk about anything, but yeah, that's my perspective on it. So
Mm, yeah, I think we share a very similar perspective here. It's also, I just wanted to say, like, the experiment is called the double slit experiment that I couldn't think of the name. And also, like, one thing that I've observed that's really interesting to me is when you look at the word COVID-19, if you analyze like the word 19, the number 1 is the first letter in the alphabet, and the number 9 is the ninth letter in the alphabet is I. So the first letter in the alphabet is A, and the ninth letter is I. So if you analyze that, you see that maybe this has something to do with like AI and whatever you want to interpret that as. And personally, I feel like there's a strong possibility that we that there not every single being or every single human on this planet right now is operating from having the same level of uh, like consciousness that we have, as far as, like having like what we call souls or whatever, and that some beings may be more like NPCs, non-controlled players, like in a video game. Like basically, I don't know if you know that term, but in a video game, you can be an actual player, and then there can be certain characters in the game that are like simulations that are not actual players. And so I feel like there's a strong possibility that some humans on this planet are more um, possibly like that, where they're more part of this simulation, and the possibility that we are living in a matrix, and uh, that what's going on here is also where there's like a deprogramming of these and non-controlled players or these AI simulated beings that possibly uh, are going to basically either be revealed, or they're going to stop existing on on this plane, or this plan's net, whatever you want to call it, that we're living in. And that's another very far out there idea, but that's something that I just found really interesting, and I thought it would be worth mentioning. But yeah, I think we covered a lot here, and
Mm.
we did a very good job. So yeah, if there's anything else you want to mention to that, you can. But I think we did a great job wrapping it up here. So yeah, is there anything else you would like to add on?
No, I think we'll leave it there. We've covered a lot in this video,
Right.
right? And yeah, thank you so much for talking today with me. And I'm looking forward to sharing this with people. And yeah, we can definitely elaborate more in the future whenever. And yeah, any final things you want to say, um, feel free.
Nice. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very grateful to be here and be able to have this platform to speak on, and for you allowing me to express my authentic self without needing to hide anything. And we will talk more about this for sure. And yeah, thank you so much again. Have a great rest of your night.
Yeah. Thanks, David. See ya.
All right. Peace.